reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to the crowds, "To what shall I compare this generation? It is like children who sit in marketplaces and call to one another. We played the flute for you, but you did not dance. We sang a dirge, but you did not mourn. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they said, 'He is possessed by a demon.' The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they said, 'Look, he is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners.' But wisdom is vindicated by her works." The Gospel of the Lord. There are some rare moments in the Gospels where we get a sense of Jesus' frustration and his being impacted by the humanity around him, as not being willing to accept the message that he's given. There, of course, is that classic moment when he goes and throws all of the money changers out of the temple. There's another time where he's talking about the fact of this fruit tree not bearing fruit, and when they come back by it again, he ends up showing that it's withered, because a tree that does not bear good fruit is not a good tree. And we hear him today saying specifically about how people end up looking for the wrong things in the right places. And so he talks about John the Baptist and what he was doing, and the people look at him and say, well, he's just crazy, that he's crazy. And all of a sudden he talks about Jesus himself, and unlike John the Baptist, who just ate honey and curds out in the desert, he eats and drinks with people, and they say, well, he's a person that's a glutton and a drunkard. So they just will not get the point right. And of course, ultimately, he says the only way it will come true what the reality is when they see the works that take place, that wisdom is vindicated by the works. And of course, as we look at the whole ministry of Jesus and see how very successful he was in carrying out essentially the message of the Old Testament and the promises and the pledges of Isaiah with regard to this new time that will come about when the Messiah comes into being, we know that wisdom shows itself in what he had done. Sometimes we too miss the point. We end up looking in the wrong place. We end up going in the wrong direction. And Jesus over and over again in his patience continues to say to us, get back on the right path. Put yourself in a place and context out of which you'll be true to the message. And that's why, for example, in that first prayer we heard again today, we're reminded how we should be ready to meet him when he comes. We should be prepared. And the readiness and the preparedness means essentially that we keep looking at where we are in our journey with him and keep making the changes that must take place in our own personal lives, in our own personal journeys, so as to sure to be on the right path.